Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Secrets to Success, deploying an expert assistant based on IBM Watson AI and Kubernetes for Workday. My name is Brian Daniel, and with me is Frank Chang. Frank, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Frank Chang. I am a senior software applications engineer and the WEX lead here at Workday on Workday, better known as WOW. And a personal fun fact of mine is that I am an avid snowboarder who occasionally likes to take my kids down Black Diamonds.
I didn't know that about you. My name is Brian Daniel. I'm from IBM, part of the Global Cloud Acceleration Team, or GCAT for short. And my personal fun fact is I maintain saltwater reef aquariums as a hobby. Now, we're going to go at a brisk pace just because we have lots to show and short on time. The agenda we're going to cover includes a quick vision and journey so you understand the business case and how WEX got started. Then Frank will actually introduce you and talk to you and actually show you a live demonstration of the solution. In the second half of this agenda, we'll dive a little bit deeper, take a look at the architecture, what makes up WEX, and finally, take a look at the business impact and what were some of the results and success of this solution. So Frank, I'll turn it over to you. And can you tell us a little bit about that original vision behind Workday's Expert Assistant, or WEX for short?
Sure. So yeah, our chatbot AI assistant is called Workday Expert, or we like to call him WEX for short. Really, what this project and mission is really all about is AI transformation in HR, right? So HR was our very first business use case. And they had an issue that we tried to help them out with. We think we've done a pretty good job. We basically needed to effectively scale our people support process for our projected growth from currently around 10,000 employees and scale that to 20,000 employees and beyond, right? So we need to be able to do this all the while not losing focus on providing a speedy, accessible, and a fun service really for our workmates, or AKA Workday employees. So we adopted this mission statement, and these 5 bullet points basically outline how very important it is in the conception of our chatbot, right? So the end result is WEX, Workday Expert. And one thing I like to call out here, Brian, is that it is very, very important to make sure that your chatbot is tightly coupled with with your company culture. Our feedback for the last 6-7 months shows that WEX is perceived as having the best aspect of who we are as a company and our culture.
And speaking of culture, I think this slide is a great example of that. And, everybody must be wondering, who's this dog or what's this puppy doing here? Can you tell us a little bit about this personality and how?
Yeah, absolutely. So WEX is our ever loyal and faithful scout dog, who's basically comprised of all of Workday's core values, right? Or the best aspect of all of our values. He goes about helping workmates, aka Workday employees, with fun, empathetic, and really trustworthy answers to their specific HR questions. He understands the importance of providing consistent and helpful responses, and is always approachable and compassionate. That's how we see him as a mascot, as a avatar, as our bot.
And you apply that as you train Watson, right? That's the personality that comes out of.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it sounds kind of funny. WEX really enjoys giving advice in a casual, playful, and manner without being impatient or irrelevant. We want our workmates to know that we value them and that their questions matter. And really, the way we went about building WEX, you can really tell that we put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of resources on building out his persona.
Mm. Now, I'm sure everyone's itching to see him in action, but before we jump to the demo, can you briefly talk about the journey that you took from start to finish? What was involved?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixture of technology and business, right?
Mhm.
As with every successful project launch. From the technology side, we knew we had to find the right conversational technology and platform to develop and to deploy on. When we reach out to our cohorts over in product development to see what advice they could give us, they suggested that we reach out to IBM.
Mhm.
It was actually a very smart decision and a smart process, since we were able to leverage our existing relationship that we had on the product side with IBM. And pretty much in the end, IBM Cloud just made sense. We're able to leverage all the technologies, all the leading security features, the scalability, and the innovation we were looking for in a public cloud for business infrastructure.
Mhm.
And what's also really, really cool was really having Watson in our back pocket. It just made it a game changer, pretty much.
Ah, great. And shall we see it in action? Because it looks like it, obviously it's launched.
Oh yeah.
Doing-
One thing that I forgot to mention earlier is that we just talked about the technology side, but on the business side, we needed to be able to meet our workmates where they work, right? So we have a designation that internally in Workday that we call the natural workspace, and Slack is being one of them. Is where a majority of workmates work in every day. We felt that that was a really good starting point for us. And we use that as a first medium or channel where our employees can actually interact with WEX. And along the journey, how did we start? We pretty much started right off the bat getting educated, learning everything about containerization, about service orchestration, about microservices, and everything that the IBM cloud infrastructure had to offer. And we went through your typical process. We aligned with our internal business partners. We built out proof of concepts. We iterated. We got feedback. We developed some more, and we tested. And we did a pilot with our new hire orientation, and the feedback that we received was tremendous. And it finally was time to launch him.
And speaking of launch, it's there now, right? So should I switch over and give you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Let me.
Let's take a quick look at it.
Yeah, let
I'll
me
stop
go
sharing.
ahead and share my screen. So we develop WEX so that right when you click into him, you'll get a hello message, and you'll see that he returns a very casual and very interactive hello message. And
Yeah, part of his personality.
yeah, definitely part of his persona. What I can do is also, hi WEX, and he knows that since we're in lockdown, we're working from home, so he has some common questions that we can actions that we can click on. And as part of our culture, fun is a big part of it, right? So tell me a joke. So and as you can see, you can always provide feedback, and we've gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback for WEX. Something
I
else
assume
that's
you use it for some real work too at the same
yeah,
time.
exactly, time for some real work, right? So one question that results in a lot of tier 1 support tickets is especially from new hires is how do we enroll in the 401k plan, right? So how do I 401k? And so the response that you'll find is that he's happy and eager to help out. He wants to make sure you have the right information, trustworthy information. So we have links embedded to our benefit site as well as our fidelity site. And then there are some instructions here. And again, you can provide feedback.
Yeah.
And if this didn't meet your needs, or if for some reason didn't solve your request, you can request additional support to open up a tier one support ticket here.
Okay. Well, shall we keep moving on just for this
Yeah,
time there? And
definitely.
as we switch over, one of the things I'd like to mention here is I really like the interaction it has. Right, it's not just a chat conversation. It gives me actions. It allows me to provide feedback.
Correct.
Like the direction in where I could go to get further information. So it's somewhat of a natural.
Definitely, and all of that is native to the natural workspace or the channel that that is Slack for now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I wanna call out is that we also made WEX very extensible. There's a lot of functionality and features that that is embedded in the response from WEX that's associated with third-party APIs, right? And so with the Watson service, you can actually have as part of the response coming back from Watson, you can have it call third-party APIs. Like if you want to know the stock quote, or if you want to know the weather,
or service
anything.
now, for example, is one.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe should we talk through this architecture?
Yeah, perfect segue into it, right? So, so here it shows the path of this slide. Basically, shows a path of when a workmate requests an answer in Slack, something like, for example, like we just asked, how do I find out more information about joining the 401k plan, right? Mm-hmm. So Slack will pass that information into the IBM cloud environment, and Ingress will receive that and then pass that request on to a microservice in our channel that we call the Slack pod. Mm-hmm. Slack pod's responsible for authenticating and verifying that the request did come from Slack, and then transform that request into a payload for WEX Core, which is another microservice that we have. Mm-hmm. And WEX Core is really the guts of this architecture. IBM Watson being the brains, WEX Core is the guts. So WEX Core will get that
the muscle question in the muscle, I guess.
There you go. We'll get the question, or we call the utterance, from the Slack pod, and it does a few things. It first processes that and sends it over to the another microservice that we have called the PII scrubber, or we also call a scrubber pod. Scrubber pod's sole responsibility is to make sure that no personally identifiable information, is no information of that sort is passed in to Watson at all. So it scrubs all that out. Mm-hmm. It then sends it over to Redis to get a session, mm-hmm. and then together that information is then passed on to Watson. So the utterance, the scrubbed utterance, is passed to Watson, and Watson will respond back with an intent and also a response. So now that we have the scrubbed utterance, the intent, the response, we store that in a Postgres database.
Down here, okay.
Down there, exactly. And then WEX Core will send that information back to SlackPod, and SlackPod will then translate that and put it in a format that Slack can read and display to the end user.
So a couple of questions here. Is this Postgres database that you're storing information here, what do you use that for? Is that?
So we basically use it to keep track of all conversations. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, there's a dotted line from ServiceNow. Mm-hmm. One of the processes is that, hey, if this answer doesn't meet your need, go ahead and here's an easy way to create a tier 1 support ticket. And then and ultimately we want to link those conversations that resulted in a tier 1 support ticket, and we want to analyze that. We want to make sure that we can have some metrics around the deflection rate, right? So, for example, how many conversations
in the future?
Yeah, and ultimately we want to feed that information back into Watson so that it can learn.
Okay. And in regards to deploying this architecture, it looks like you're leveraging Kubernetes. We're leveraging the multi-zone uh,
Yep.
regions for high availability.
Yep, we have 3 nodes running in, each node is running in a different zone. Currently it's implemented in one region, but as you'll see later on, our goal is to go to um, multi-regional, right?
Yeah, multi-zone. Yep. So, and I guess one other quick thing, we'll talk about this piece here, the content admins and how they're training Watson. We have a later slide for that. But in regards to the overall services, backing up the data, monitoring, logging, we'll talk about in a bit. What was your experience there in regards to using
It
these?
was actually pretty seamless, pretty easy to deploy and to set up and to deploy. We're running 3 kube clusters right now, one for
Mhm.
development, one for staging, one for production. And once we have it built out for example, in the development environment, it was pretty easy to run some Terraform scripts to replicate that, pretty much that architecture in different clusters, and then we just configure those clusters separately for example, for production, for staging, and such.
Okay. Now you said easy, and of course that's words I like to hear. But the reality is sometimes things do happen, and we need to. I guess it's fair to say that it's important to take the time to have a solid foundation for both logging and monitoring. And one thing I
Yeah,
like to point out here is, I'm sorry. One thing I like to point out here is, as we set up these clusters, we have the ability to also connect them to logging and monitoring tools. Um, and
yeah, which
I'm kind of smiling
is
because there's
very
a story
important.
behind this, right? Something that happened while you were prototyping, where this actually came in handy.
Yeah, so as we were building out the log DNA monitoring and logging capabilities, really helped us figure out or isolate it to a specific issue that we were having, to a memory leak in a Python code, that
Mm,
library actually that we were using. So the way we went around doing this is that every single microservice, we have output logging from those microservices, and all of that is connected to LogDNA. And once we have those microservices set up for logging capability, we're then able to build error notifications or monitoring around them, and create the capability for notification. So for example, whenever we have potential issues that has been logged, and these action items are built around it to notify us via email, via Slack, and personally for me via text messaging, so that I can get ahead of any issues, potential issues.
mm.
It's actually been a big lifesaver, and it was actually pretty easy to set up all 3 of those notifications.
Yep. Yeah. Before in the past, it used to be 2 commands to run. Now it's basically a push of a button. So it's
Yeah,
encourage
everything's
everyone
done
to
via
try it out.
configuration
Yeah.
at this point, so it's pretty cool. As long as you build your microservice to output that information, it's pretty easy um, to build the monitoring and the notifications around that,
Okay.
which I'm very thankful
Yep.
for.
Well, let's keep going here because I think we're getting short on time. But one
Sure.
quick piece I wanted to just mention is, at the end of the day, one of the critical factors you mentioned, Watson is the brains behind this solution. And quite frankly, if it's not giving the right answers, people aren't going to come back to it. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to help make it smarter? And is it IT doing it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So this is one area I think where our cross-functional team comes in very it shows the power of having cross-functional teams, right? So and this is an area where we've pretty much enabled our business partners in HR operations to basically take ownership of this process, to iterate, to design meaningful intents and responses to questions that a workmate may ask. And so they're able to use existing analytics tools existing history of all the tier one support tickets that were created, and use that to train and seed Watson um, prior to us going live, so that they're able to then identify, hey, what are some of the top questions? What are the top utterances, and how we can build an intent or an intent library to to answer those questions. So yeah, it's an iterative process, and our business partners have taken ownership of it,
Mm,
and they're basically training the model to improve it.
cool. Now, in regards to how they're doing and the results as we move towards the end here and the end of our time, can you talk a little bit about these results that we're
Yeah,
seeing here and the impact?
yeah, definitely. So, as I mentioned earlier, tier one support requests, this one shows the number of tickets that were opened year over year. Um, as you can see, there's a high number of interaction from the red line to the blue line, right? So, red line is a year later. Red line is basically 2019 to 2020. The blue
Mm-hmm,
line, 2018 to 2019, and
mm-hmm.
we launched WEX in October of 2019. And immediately after we launched WEX, you can see it's the number of tier one request tickets are declining with respect to the ratio of employees.
Yeah, because in 2019, you guys had more employees than you did in the previous years, right?
Yeah, so what's really interesting there is that even with a larger workforce, WEX helps us
Absorb
reduce
those
the number of
questions and
support tickets. Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
take
Definitely, I
advantage.
wish I had some March data, but unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah,
Um,
but the trend
but
is there, and even though there
yeah,
are more
it's
employees, it's
it's
trending down, and that's
it's
great.
very positive, very positive.
Well, you know what that means with the added success breeds success. Everyone, I think, wants it now, and at least in Workday. Can you tell me a little bit about what's
Yeah,
your plans?
you hit that one on the nose. Other teams, other orgs in our company have taken notice. They've seen the impact. They've experienced it themselves, right? So we were growing, and we still are growing tremendously. We have a lot of new hires in every organization within Workday, and word has gotten out over the last 6 months that, hey, this works.
Mhm.
It speaks to our employees. It speaks to who we are as a company, and it just works. And so, we started out with our people and purpose, which is our HR team. We got workplace safety, we got information security, legal, we got business technology, all wanting to implement this um, for for their own orgs.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we're still planning for a multi-regional expansion to make it worldwide for us.
Ah, okay. And the idea being is that you can leverage the same type of clusters, the same type of
Absolutely.
tooling, and just redeploy it and scale it to a
Absolutely.
larger.
We just set up, make sure we have the Kubernetes environment there, and then we can go ahead and deploy our Terraform scripts and have it basically configure the environments for us so that we can just go in and run our clusters.
Cool. Well, let's wrap things up here. And in summary, I think one of the nice things, or I would say the cool thing that I liked about the solution and working with the team, is it literally paired technology and personality and involved multiple lines of business. And I just included a screenshot there of not just the mascot, but some of the information and marketing that was actually created for this project as well. Um, Frank, do you want to talk about some of the other lessons learned and some of the things that
Yeah,
you'd like to leave others with?
the biggest thing definitely is making sure you plan your architecture right from the beginning.
Mhm.
This isn't something you want to go blindly into. Make sure you know the type of questions that your population is going to be asking, so that you can at least seed your Watson environment.
Mhm.
Um, you know, if you don't know much about Kubernetes, container orchestration, or replication services, container registries, and such, learn them. We didn't, but we had to spend a few weeks getting ourselves very familiar with just not only the concept, but actually the underlying technologies. And of course, you want to leverage repeatable deployment processes, right? We mentioned using Terraform. There's also something called the CDCI toolchain that IBM offers that can help you tremendously. And logging, definitely monitoring and logging the health of your pods, the status, any type of potential issues. It helps resolve. But I think one of the biggest thing here is that you need to build your system to conform really with the culture of your work environment, right? We wouldn't have had this much of a success if we didn't have WEX be more of who we feel we are from a company culture perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is one of the biggest non-technical factor in the success of WEX here at Workday.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Just some pieces of information to leave you with. Obviously, we're very proud of the IBM Cloud. It's one of the most open and secure public clouds available for the business. You'll see we've included a number of awards around innovation, security, and just the enterprise-grade capabilities. And we also continue to have high customer ratings in regards to the overall experience. Now, if you have any questions, any comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Frank and myself will be happy to continue this conversation. And if you need any help, we've included our email addresses there. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.